My name is Marjorie Carter, and the morning my heart cracked smelled like warm bread and lies. I stood on the sidewalk staring at the new sign above my bakery's door. The gold letters gleamed in the sun. Valerie's oven. Valerie, my sister. The name we had agreed on, the one printed on every permit, was Eloise's oven, after our grandmother. She taught us to bake, saved every dime to buy us our first mixer, and made us promise we'd keep her name alive. Now it was gone. For a few seconds I couldn't move. I'd spent 3 years building this place. Every recipe, every night of testing dough until sunrise, every dollar from my savings, mine. Valerie had joined only 6 months ago, after losing yet another job. I told myself family mattered more than pride. But the sign told another story. I pushed open the door. The bell chimed, releasing the smell of sugar and butter. Reporters clustered near the counter, notebooks ready. And there she was, Valerie, smiling like she owned the sun. "Oh, Marge," she called. "Perfect timing. The press is here for our opening photos." She handed me a pastry box as if we were equals. My hand shook so badly I nearly dropped it. "Why does the sign say your name?" She lowered her voice just enough for the cameras not to hear. "Branding decision. The agency said Valerie's oven sounds warmer. You'll thank me later." Branding decision. Agency. She spoke like a stranger wearing my apron. I forced a smile for the photographers. "We agreed on Grandma's name," I whispered. She smiled wider. "Relax. You get upset too easily." That phrase, too easily, burned through me. It was the same line she'd used when she crashed my car at 17 and laughed it off. Flashbulbs popped. "Over here, ladies." Big smiles. I stood beside her, my grin frozen, heart pounding. They thought we were partners. They had no idea she'd changed everything without asking. When the crowd moved outside for ribbon cutting, I lingered near the office door. On the wall hung the business license. Both our signatures were there, but under owner of record, only one name was printed in bold ink. Mine. I felt my pulse steady. Rage turned into clarity. Grandma used to say, "Don't yell when they steal from you. Read what they forgot to read." I smiled then. Valerie thought she'd erased me. She'd actually handed me proof. The scissors snipped outside. Applause. Her laughter carried through the window, bright, careless, undeserved. When she called me to join, I walked out, wiped the flour from my hands, and clapped with everyone else. The camera caught us side by side. Her holding the ribbon, me holding my silence. But while she posed, I watched the reporters pack their gear and the banker shake her hand. I noticed Tom, our consultant, talking quietly with her, avoiding my eyes. Something about that made my stomach turn. By sunset, the bakery closed to the public. Valerie stayed behind counting receipts, humming off-key. "We did it," she said. I nodded. "Yes, we did." She didn't notice the way I said it. That night, back in my apartment, I opened my old laptop and pulled up the contract. There it was in black and white: Marjorie Carter, sole proprietor. Every permit, every invoice, every receipt, mine. My hands stopped trembling. Tomorrow I'd start gathering everything: paperwork, witnesses, records. I wouldn't scream or post or beg. I'd take back what was mine the same way I built it. Quietly, thoroughly, legally. Still, one thought kept me awake as the oven timer ticked in the dark. Valerie wasn't smart enough to pull this alone. The rebrand, the press, the perfect timing, it was planned. I just didn't know yet who planned it with her. And when I found out, it wouldn't just break the partnership. It would break the family. The next morning, I walked into the bakery before dawn. The windows glowed faint blue. The oven, still warm from yesterday's chaos, smelled like sugar and betrayal. Valerie wasn't there yet. I liked it better that way. The silence reminded me of when the shop was mine alone, before hashtags, before sponsors, before she came home talking about modernizing Grandma's legacy. I brewed a pot of coffee and opened the office drawer. Inside were the files she never touched. I pulled out the binder marked founding documents. My signature stared back from every page. Tax forms, registration, insurance. Then I saw something new. An unsigned folder labeled transfer agreement. Transfer. My stomach tightened. I flipped it open. Inside was a contract proposing shared ownership, 50-50 between me and Valerie. Except the second signature line already had my name copied onto it. Perfectly. I didn't remember signing that. The date was 3 days before the rebranding, typed cleanly at the top. My hands went cold. I took photos of every page and slipped the folder back exactly where it was. When the front doorbell jingled an hour later, I was in the kitchen pretending to check the pastry fridge. Valerie strolled in, humming. "You're early," she said, hanging her coat. "I couldn't sleep," I replied. She grabbed a croissant, broke it in half. "You worry too much, Marge. Relax. We're partners now." I turned. "Partners?" She smiled with that syrupy voice that always meant danger. "Everyone says it's better this way. You handle baking, I handle business. You know I'm better at charm." Charm? That's what she called manipulation now. I wanted to ask her about the forged contract, about the bank transfers I'd found in my email receipts, but I held back. Grandma always said, "Never accuse without proof in hand. Let them hang their own apron." So I just nodded. "You're right. You're very charming." Her eyes lit up, thinking she'd won. By afternoon, she was busy giving an interview to a food blogger. I stood behind the counter serving customers, pretending not to listen. "Valerie's oven is all about family," she said sweetly. "Grandma always inspired me to dream big. Me, not us." Every sentence twisted my gut tighter. But one thing I noticed, the blogger kept glancing at the framed business license behind her, the one still listing me as sole proprietor. Valerie noticed too. She shifted her chair just enough to block it from view. After the interview, she announced a staff celebration for Friday night. "Investors will be there," she said. "Wear something nice." Investors. She'd been talking to financiers without me. That evening I drove home through rain so heavy it blurred the headlights. My phone buzzed with messages from Tom, our consultant. "Need to review documents before investor meeting," he wrote. "Valerie told me you'd sign updates." I typed back one word, "No." Then I sat on my couch, shoes still wet, and stared at Grandma's photo on the wall. "She's using your name, Grandma," I whispered. "And she thinks I'll just watch." I opened my laptop and created a folder titled The Flour Cracks. I filled it with scanned papers, receipts, voice memos. Everything that proved the bakery was mine. Evidence smelled a lot less sweet than bread, but it lasted longer. Before midnight, I had an entire case ready. Then, as I was saving the last file, my phone buzzed again. This time a text from an unknown number. "She's meeting someone tomorrow. If you want proof, come to the cafe on Main at 10. No name. No context. I stared at the message for a long moment, heart pounding. Could have been a trap. Could have been nothing. But something about the timing, right after I'd started gathering evidence, felt deliberate. I grabbed my coat, ready for whatever truth waited on the other side of that cafe door. Because maybe Valerie hadn't just stolen my bakery. Maybe she was selling it. The cafe on Main was the kind of place Valerie always called quaint. Old floors, chipped mugs, coffee that tasted too real for her filtered world. I got there early and took a seat by the window, watching cars blur through the drizzle. My heart felt like it was beating out of sync with the clock on the wall. At 10 sharp, a man slid into the chair across from me. Mid-30s, neat jacket, sharp smile. "Marjorie Carter?" "Yes," I said slowly. He glanced around, lowered his voice. "My name's Daniel. I handle promotional contracts for several investors your sister's been meeting. She doesn't know I'm here." I stayed still. "Then why are you?" He hesitated, then pushed an envelope across the table. "Because something about this didn't sit right. Your sister's selling shares of your bakery, claiming she's the sole founder. She offered me 10% to push it through quietly." I opened the envelope. Inside were printed emails, screenshots, bank drafts. Each one had Valerie's name on it, and mine erased. My hands went cold. "Where did you get these?" "She sent them to me herself. She didn't expect anyone to check the original registration." I forced a breath through my teeth. "What does she plan to do?" "She's presenting her proposal to the investors tomorrow. Once they sign, you'll be a consultant at best. Legally, she'll run everything under the rebranded name. That's why I called." I stared at the papers, the neat rows of forged signatures, the fake stamp copied from our license. Grandma's promise, our promise, was now paperwork soaked in greed. Daniel's voice softened. "You don't seem surprised." "I stopped being surprised the day she stole my wedding dress." I said quietly. She's been rehearsing this kind of betrayal for years. He almost smiled. Then maybe it's time she met her match. He stood up, left the coffee untouched, and disappeared into the rain. I sat there a long time after he left, replaying every childhood memory through a new lens. Every time Valerie cried, Grandma had comforted her. Every time I succeeded, Valerie had found a way to turn it into her story. This wasn't a sudden theft. It was a pattern finally completing itself. By noon I was back at the bakery. Valerie was at the counter, laughing with the delivery driver. She didn't notice me watching. Her charm was armor, her lies glittering under the warm light. I walked straight past her and into the office. I opened the drawer again, where the fake transfer papers were, and took them out. I placed Daniel's documents beside them, 2 versions of the same lie. And then I noticed something new. A small sticky note half tucked under the keyboard, written in her handwriting. Meeting at 7 p.m. Bring Tom. Final signature. Tom, the consultant. The man who helped us with every license, every clause. The man who was supposed to be neutral. I felt a quiet, sharp calm spread through me. At 6:50, I parked across the street from the small law office downtown. Rain streaked down the windshield. Through the window I could see Valerie inside. Perfect hair, perfect smile, talking fast while Tom nodded. They were signing something. I waited until she stood to leave, then stepped out of my car and crossed the street. She froze when she saw me. Marge, you scared me. I bet. Tom tried to speak, but I held up a hand. Not now. Valerie laughed lightly, voice trembling just enough to sound innocent. You're being dramatic again. This is just paperwork. I took one step closer, meeting her eyes. Then you won't mind if I read it. She clutched her purse tighter. It's confidential. I smiled slow, steady. Not if my name's still on the title. For the first time all day, she didn't have a comeback. Her face twitched, the way it always did when she knew the game was shifting. I glanced at Tom. Did you verify her authority to sign? He hesitated, color draining from his face. She said you'd approved. Did I? I asked quietly. Valerie's lips parted, searching for air that wasn't there. I turned to Tom. Email me everything. Tonight. Or I go to the licensing board in the morning. He nodded once, defeated. Valerie hissed. You're making a scene. No, I said softly. I'm making a record. And as I walked out into the rain, I heard her whisper something to Tom. So faint I almost missed it. But I caught enough to freeze my blood cold. Don't worry. By tomorrow, she won't have anything left to claim. That night I realized Valerie wasn't planning to steal my bakery anymore. She was planning to destroy it, before I could prove it was mine. The cafe on Main was the kind of place Valerie always called quaint. Old floors, chipped mugs, coffee that tasted too real for her filtered world. I got there early and took a seat by the window, watching cars blur through the drizzle. My heart felt like it was beating out of sync with the clock on the wall. At 10 sharp, a man slid into the chair across from me. Mid-30s, neat jacket, sharp smile. Marjorie Carter? Yes, I said slowly. He glanced around, lowered his voice. My name's Daniel. I handle promotional contracts for several investors your sister's been meeting. She doesn't know I'm here. I stayed still. Then why are you? He hesitated, then pushed an envelope across the table. Because something about this didn't sit right. Your sister's selling shares of your bakery, claiming she's the sole founder. She offered me 10% to push it through quietly. I opened the envelope. Inside were printed emails, screenshots, bank drafts. Each one had Valerie's name on it, and mine erased. My hands went cold. Where did you get these? She sent them to me herself. She didn't expect anyone to check the original registration. I forced a breath through my teeth. What does she plan to do? She's presenting her proposal to the investors tomorrow. Once they sign, you'll be a consultant at best. Legally, she'll run everything under the rebranded name. That's why I called. I stared at the papers, the neat rows of forged signatures, the fake stamp copied from our license. Grandma's promise, our promise, was now paperwork soaked in greed. Daniel's voice softened. You don't seem surprised. I stopped being surprised the day she stole my wedding dress, I said quietly. She's been rehearsing this kind of betrayal for years. He almost smiled. Then maybe it's time she met her match. He stood up, left the coffee untouched, and disappeared into the rain. I sat there a long time after he left, replaying every childhood memory through a new lens. Every time Valerie cried, Grandma had comforted her. Every time I succeeded, Valerie had found a way to turn it into her story. This wasn't a sudden theft. It was a pattern finally completing itself. By noon I was back at the bakery. Valerie was at the counter, laughing with the delivery driver. She didn't notice me watching. Her charm was armor, her lies glittering under the warm light. I walked straight past her and into the office. I opened the drawer again, where the fake transfer papers were, and took them out. I placed Daniel's documents beside them, 2 versions of the same lie. And then I noticed something new. A small sticky note half tucked under the keyboard, written in her handwriting. Meeting at 7 p.m. Bring Tom. Final signature. Tom, the consultant. The man who helped us with every license, every clause. The man who was supposed to be neutral. I felt a quiet, sharp calm spread through me. At 6:50, I parked across the street from the small law office downtown. Rain streaked down the windshield. Through the window I could see Valerie inside. Perfect hair, perfect smile, talking fast while Tom nodded. They were signing something. I waited until she stood to leave, then stepped out of my car and crossed the street. She froze when she saw me. Marge, you scared me. I bet. Tom tried to speak, but I held up a hand. Not now. Valerie laughed lightly, voice trembling just enough to sound innocent. You're being dramatic again. This is just paperwork. I took one step closer, meeting her eyes. Then you won't mind if I read it. She clutched her purse tighter. It's confidential. I smiled slow, steady. Not if my name's still on the title. For the first time all day, she didn't have a comeback. Her face twitched, the way it always did when she knew the game was shifting. I glanced at Tom. Did you verify her authority to sign? He hesitated, color draining from his face. She said you'd approved. Did I? I asked quietly. Valerie's lips parted, searching for air that wasn't there. I turned to Tom. Email me everything. Tonight. Or I go to the licensing board in the morning. He nodded once, defeated. Valerie hissed. You're making a scene. No, I said softly. I'm making a record. And as I walked out into the rain, I heard her whisper something to Tom. So faint I almost missed it. But I caught enough to freeze my blood cold. Don't worry. By tomorrow, she won't have anything left to claim. That night I realized Valerie wasn't planning to steal my bakery anymore. She was planning to destroy it, before I could prove it was mine. Valerie's face drained the second she saw him. Tom, the consultant she'd used to forge my name. He stepped forward awkwardly, his usual charm cracked in half. Marjorie, I didn't know she was coming, he said. Valerie's voice sharpened like a knife. What are you doing here? I held up the envelope. Delivering this. Her eyes flicked to the heading in bold letters. Cease and desist. For once she didn't speak. Just stared. You can't be serious, she said finally, her voice low. Oh, I'm past serious, I said. This is legal. She snatched the paper, scanned the first lines and laughed, too loud, too brittle. You're threatening me? Over Grandma's dream? No, I said. Over my property. Tom tried to interject. Maybe we can sit down and save it. I cut in. You already sat down once to help her forge my signature. His mouth fell open. Marjorie, she said you gave permission. And you believed her without checking? He didn't answer. Valerie's glare could have burned through glass. You've always loved playing victim. You think being the responsible one gives you moral credit. No, I said softly. It gives me receipts. I turned slightly so Hannah could film the exchange on her phone, silently, from her coat pocket. Clara's advice echoed in my head. Let them speak. They'll write your case for you. Valerie tore the papers in half. You can't scare me with some lawyer trick. I don't have to, I said. Because tomorrow when you open your fake bakery, every supplier will already have this letter in their inbox. You'll have flour, but no one to sell it to. Her mouth opened then closed again. Tom swallowed hard. Marjorie, that might ruin her financially. She ruined herself, I said. Valerie's voice trembled for the first time. You do that to me? Your own sister? I protect Grandma's name, I said quietly. That's what this was supposed to be about. The silence between us was thick and sour. Finally, Valerie crossed her arms. You think you can stop me with paperwork? You can't trademark love, Marge. I almost laughed. No. But I can trademark the logo, the slogan, and the recipe collection you uploaded online under your name. Her eyes widened. You didn't. I did, I said. Yesterday. It's called preemptive protection. You taught me how to plan for betrayal, you just didn't expect me to use your own tactics. The color drained from her face completely. I stepped closer. You wanted a bakery under your name? Fine. But you'll have to build it from scratch. Because everything connected to Eloise's oven now belongs to the woman who actually built it. For a moment she just stared. Then she laughed again, softer this time. You really think you've won? I don't need to win, I said. I just need to close the oven door before you burn the rest of the family in it. I turned to leave Hannah behind me. But before I reached the door, Valerie said something that stopped me cold. You think you've outsmarted me, but I've already got investors lined up, she said, voice rising. And when this blows up, I'll tell them you faked those documents. You'll lose your business and your credibility. I turned slowly. You can try. She smiled, thin and dangerous. Oh, I already did. Something about her tone made my stomach twist. I stepped closer. What do you mean? She tilted her head. You'll see tomorrow. You like surprises, don't you? And with that she slammed the door in my face. Hannah exhaled sharply beside me. What does she have planned? I don't know, I said. But she sounded too confident for someone cornered. We drove back in silence. The city lights streaked across the windshield like long scratches of gold. In my lap, the torn cease and desist letter lay folded and damp. Halfway home my phone buzzed. An email notification. Subject line, urgent media request for comment. I opened it. A journalist from a local paper wanted confirmation about ongoing family disputes regarding the ownership of Eloise's oven. Valerie had already gone public. The headline attached to the draft article read, Sisterly feud threatens to destroy beloved family bakery. Below it, Valerie's photo, smiling sweetly beside Grandma's framed picture. And one quote highlighted in bold. I tried to include my sister, but she wants control. This isn't about love, it's about greed. Hannah looked at my screen and whispered, She beat you to the story. I clenched my jaw, the coffee taste of betrayal burning at the back of my throat. She wanted a public war, I said. Then that's what she'll get. Because tomorrow morning, the story won't be about two sisters fighting. It'll be about one woman exposing the thief who tried to steal her grandmother's name. Morning came like judgment. The air smelled of rain again. Heavy, metallic, expectant. By 7 a.m. My phone was already buzzing with calls. Hannah sent screenshots from social media. Valerie's smiling face plastered on every local feed. Granddaughter carries on family legacy. The headlines read. Her story had gone viral overnight. In every photo my bakery stood behind her, my counters, my tiles, my shelves, with my sign covered by her new banner. Valerie's oven, a legacy of love. For a long minute I just stared at the screen. The part of me that used to flinch was gone. All that remained was calculation. I dressed carefully, black slacks, crisp blouse, hair tied back. Not for vanity. For court. Are you sure you're ready? Hannah asked over the phone. I'm not ready, I said. I'm rehearsed. At 9 sharp, Clara met me outside the bakery. She wore her usual calm-like armor. We'll do this by the book, she said. One misstep and she'll spin it as harassment. Let me lead. I nodded, though my pulse felt like it had its own heartbeat. Inside, the bakery was full, customers, reporters, even a camera crew from the local channel. Valerie was glowing under the lights, holding a tray of pastries as if she'd invented sugar. When she saw me, her smile barely flickered. Oh, look who showed up. Everyone, this is my sister Marjorie, the creative mind behind our recipes. Isn't she wonderful? The crowd clapped politely. Cameras turned. She'd staged this moment. She wanted witnesses to her false grace. Clara stepped forward, voice crisp. Ms. Valerie Carter, on behalf of my client, I'm serving you formal notice of injunction for fraudulent misrepresentation of business identity. The crowd hushed. The words landed like dropped glass. Valerie blinked. Excuse me. Clara held out the document. You've misused trademarks, brand property, and registration materials belonging to Eloise's oven, legally owned by Ms. Marjorie Carter. Effective immediately, you are required to cease operations under this name until the matter is resolved. Someone gasped. The camera crew leaned closer. Valerie's mask cracked for the first time. You can't do this in front of people. Clara's voice stayed smooth. Public misrepresentation requires public correction. I stood beside her, silent, steady. Every humiliation I'd endured pressed into that single breath. Valerie laughed, desperate now. You're trying to destroy me in front of everyone? No, I said softly. You did that when you took Grandma's name and used it to lie. Cameras flashed. Someone whispered, "Is this real?" Clara motioned toward the counter. Please note the equipment, branding, and signage for documentation. Valerie's hand shot out, grabbing my wrist. You think Grandma would have wanted this? I met her eyes. Grandma wanted honesty. You buried that the second you replaced her name with yours. She released me, shaking. The tension in the room was electric, half disbelief, half fascination. And then, just as Clara began sealing the envelope with the injunction notice, Valerie's phone buzzed. She checked it and smiled. Actually, she said, her voice rising with false calm, you're the one who'll need to stop, Marge. Because as of this morning, you don't own the bakery. Clara frowned. What? Valerie turned the phone toward us. An email on her screen read, Transfer of ownership approved, County Business Registry. My chest went cold. That's impossible, Clara whispered. They can't process transfers without physical verification. Valerie shrugged. Guess paperwork moves fast when you have the right help. I felt the world tilt. Someone had pushed it through, someone with access. And in that moment I remembered Tom. The way he'd avoided my eyes when Valerie mentioned investors. Hannah's voice in my ear through the phone. Marge, what's happening? You're on live feed. Tell me you still have the original documents, Clara said quickly. I do, I said. Scanned and notarized. Valerie smirked. Then good luck proving they're not forged copies. The originals are gone. I stepped closer, my voice steady enough to slice. You broke into my bakery last night. That's theft and tampering. Prove it, she said. And then she turned to the reporters, her smile blooming again. I'm so sorry you had to witness this. My sister's been struggling with stress. She needs rest. A ripple of sympathy spread through the room. I could see it in their eyes, the narrative shifting, sympathy tilting toward her again. Clara whispered, we need to leave. We'll fix this with evidence, not emotion. But I stayed rooted. Because something inside me refused to walk away this time. I looked around, at the cameras, the reporters, the faces that once loved our story. You want a story? I said quietly. You'll get one. I walked behind the counter, grabbed a framed photo of Grandma from the shelf, and held it up high. This woman taught us that love without honesty is poison. Valerie turned her legacy into a brand. Valerie hissed. Put that down. But I didn't. This bakery was built from her recipes, her name, her savings, and her wish that we'd never use it to hurt each other. I won't let you rewrite that. My voice didn't shake. And for a heartbeat the crowd stopped breathing. Then someone shouted, check the signatures. She's right. Reporters surged forward. Valerie's mask cracked completely, the perfect smile slipping into panic. But before I could speak again, a uniformed man entered, flashing a badge. Are you Ms. Marjorie Carter? Yes, I said. He handed me a folded document. You've been served. My heart pounded as I read the header. Restraining order, filed by Valerie Carter. The room spun. Cameras flashed again. And as Valerie's voice rose above the noise, soft, pitying, rehearsed, I realized she'd been one step ahead. She hadn't just stolen my bakery. She'd stolen the truth itself. And I was running out of time to take it back. The room fell into static silence. Flashes kept popping and I realized the cameras were still rolling. Every word, every breath, every humiliation. Valerie had planned this too. Clara whispered, "We need to leave now." But I couldn't move. Not yet. The officer stepped back, his job done, and Valerie slipped right into her role, calm, gentle, full of practiced empathy. "I never wanted it to come to this," she said loudly enough for the reporters. "My sister's been unstable for months. I tried to protect her, but she's been making threats." I felt my jaw tighten. She was weaponizing compassion, turning me into the villain with nothing but a soft voice. Someone from the news crew asked, "Miss Carter, is this true?" Valerie pressed a hand to her chest, tears glimmering perfectly. "I love my sister, but sometimes love means drawing boundaries." I almost laughed. Boundaries? From the woman who had crawled into my life and hollowed it out. Clara touched my elbow. "Let's go. Don't give her more sound bites." I turned and walked out, not defeated but detonating. Because as we stepped into the cold daylight, I realized what she hadn't planned for. Documentation. Every email. Every photo. Every transaction she thought she deleted was stored twice. Once in my drive, once in Grandma's old archive system. And Grandma, bless her heart, had been old school. Paper ledgers. Handwritten notes. Receipts sealed in plastic sleeves. They were still sitting in my apartment, inside the cedar chest she left me. Valerie never thought to check there because she never valued things that didn't sparkle. "Clara," I said, "can we overturn a restraining order if it's built on false statements?" Her eyes sharpened. "Easily, if we prove fabrication. But we'll need evidence fast." I nodded. "Then we're not sleeping tonight." That night, Hannah and I sat on my living room floor surrounded by Grandma's handwriting, dates, purchase lists, supplier ledgers. Every item linked back to my tax ID, my funds, my bakery. "This is your weapon," Hannah said quietly. "No," I said. "This is Grandma's truth." At midnight, Clara joined us with her laptop. If Valerie filed false documentation, it'll show in the county database. They timestamp every upload. We searched, click after click. And there it was, a transfer request logged at 3:27 a.m., the same night Valerie broke in. Attached, scanned forms bearing my forged signature. But the timestamp betrayed her. She'd filed the transfer before the supposed signing time listed on the form. Perfect mistake. Clara grinned. "This is forgery and perjury. Both felonies." "Can we use it tomorrow?" I asked. "Oh, we'll use it tonight," she said. "There's an emergency hearing clause for fraudulent filings. We'll request immediate reversal." Hannah exhaled. "You mean she's about to lose everything in a single night?" I met her gaze. Exactly how she planned it for me. We spent the next hours drafting the emergency motion. Clara worked like a surgeon, clean, precise, merciless. I provided evidence, Hannah cross-checked timestamps, and by 2 a.m., the document was ready. We filed it electronically. Then we waited. At 6:42 a.m., my phone buzzed. Notification from the county clerk. Emergency review approved. Hearing scheduled 9 a.m. today. I looked at Clara. She won't see it coming. "Let's keep it that way," she said. We arrived at the courthouse just as Valerie's morning interview was airing on local TV. She was sitting in that same bakery pretending to cry. "I'm praying for reconciliation," she told the reporter, voice trembling on cue. The anchor nodded sympathetically. "You sound like a peacemaker." I turned off the monitor. She's about to find out what peace really costs. Inside the courtroom, the judge looked weary but alert. "This is an expedited fraud hearing. Ms. Marjorie Carter, you are petitioning to reverse ownership transfer?" "Yes, Your Honor," I said. "The transfer was falsified. I have proof." Valerie turned, smiling faintly, confident. "Your Honor, my sister's been." The judge held up a hand. "Let's see the evidence." Clara stepped forward and presented the timestamp database record. The defendant filed a digital transfer before the stated signature time. The system log confirms manipulation. This alone proves falsification. The judge studied the document. "And the originals?" "Recovered, sir," Clara said. "With authentic handwriting comparison verified." Valerie's smile cracked. The judge sighed. "Effective immediately. Ownership of Eloise's oven is reinstated to Marjorie Carter. Further investigation into fraudulent conduct will proceed. The gavel hit once, a sound sharper than thunder. Reporters outside heard it too. The whispers started before we even stood up. Valerie rose, pale and shaking. "You can't do this. I built that bakery." I looked at her evenly. "No, Valerie. You built a mirror. I built the foundation." Clara gathered our files. "Let's go before the storm breaks." But as we walked toward the door, I heard Valerie's voice, low, venomous, promising. "This isn't over. You think court rulings change hearts? You took Grandma's name, Marge. I'll make sure everyone remembers you as the one who destroyed it." I stopped in the hallway. The cameras outside were waiting. And in that moment I realized this wasn't just about ownership. It was about narrative. She wanted control of the story. I wanted truth. So I did the one thing she would never expect. I stepped toward the microphones and said, "You're right, Valerie. This isn't over. It's just beginning." Because if she wanted a public war, I was done fighting in silence. And this time the whole town would hear exactly what she'd done. The courthouse doors opened like a stage curtain, and the world rushed in. Cameras, microphones, voices calling my name. "Marjorie, is it true your sister forged documents? Are you suing your own family?" I'd always thought silence was safety. But silence was what let Valerie rewrite my story. So I looked straight into the nearest camera and said, "Yes, she forged them. And yes, I'm suing for the truth." The reporters erupted. Questions collided in the air. Flashes blinding me, but I didn't flinch. For once the chaos didn't scare me. It belonged to me. Valerie came out seconds later, sunglasses on, pretending calm. "My sister's hurting," she told the cameras. "She's confused." I stepped closer, my voice low but clear enough for every microphone to catch. "Confused people don't file notarized evidence, Valerie." Her mask slipped for just a heartbeat, that flash of fury she couldn't hide. Then she smiled again, turning toward the crowd. "I wish her peace." The same words Evan had once used in another story, the same empty kind of virtue. Inside the courthouse lobby, Clara caught my arm. "You handled that perfectly. Public truth beats spin every time." But Hannah, waiting by the elevator, looked uneasy. "You might want to see this." She handed me her phone. Social media was already ablaze, split down the middle. Half the commenters called me brave. The other half called me cold. Family should forgive. This is what happens when women get too ambitious. I handed the phone back. "They'll believe what they want." "That's the point," Hannah said. "You can't just fight her in court now. She's playing the sympathy game." Clara nodded. "We'll handle the legal side. But public perception? That's your battlefield." That afternoon I went back to the bakery. The windows were taped off, the door sealed with an official notice. Inside, the smell of sugar still lingered, faint, sweet, and hollow. For months I had built this place with love. Every tile, every recipe had a piece of Grandma in it. And now it was evidence. I walked behind the counter and found the small wooden box where we'd once kept tip money. Inside, folded and faded, was one of Grandma's handwritten notes. "Flour rises best when the air is warm, but hearts rise best when they're honest." My throat tightened. That was why I'd built this bakery in the first place. Not for profit. For her. Behind me, Hannah whispered. "You okay?" I nodded. Better than she deserves. We started cleaning the counters, organizing what could be salvaged. Outside, people began to gather, customers, neighbors, old friends. Some just watched silently through the glass, unsure what to say. Others mouthed, "We're with you." Then, as if the universe wanted one more twist, Valerie's voice boomed from a speaker outside. She was giving a live interview across the street. "Of course I love my sister," she said into the microphone. "But she's always had control issues. Grandma's legacy shouldn't be about ownership. It should be about sharing." The crowd outside turned toward her. Reporters circled again. I felt the heat rise in my chest. "She's hijacking the narrative," I muttered. Clara appeared beside me. "Then take it back." "How?" She pointed at the chalkboard wall inside the bakery, the one where customers used to write their favorite memories. "Write your truth. In your handwriting. And let people see it." I picked up a piece of chalk. My hands were shaking, but my words weren't. This bakery was built in Grandma Eloise's name, with her recipes, her savings, and her faith. No one who lies deserves to use her story. Hannah flipped the closed sign to reclaiming. People started snapping photos of the message. Within minutes, it was online. The caption spread faster than any interview. She didn't close it. She reclaimed it. Valerie's live segment sputtered. Her audience drifted away. Phones lighting up with my chalkboard message. By sunset, my post had been shared thousands of times. Women I'd never met sent messages. Bakers, small business owners, daughters who'd been betrayed by someone they trusted. Their words were all different, but their message was the same. Thank you for fighting back without hate. For the first time since it began, I didn't feel like I was surviving a scandal. I felt like I was leading one toward its end. That night, the local news aired both interviews, hers and mine side by side. The footage told its own story. Valerie's rehearsed sorrow next to my calm precision. Public opinion began to tilt. And just when I thought it was over, my phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. You don't know who you're up against. Valerie isn't working alone. I stared at the screen, my heart thudding. Clara, I said slowly, I think this just got bigger than family. Because if Valerie had helped forging the transfer, then the betrayal didn't stop with her. It started somewhere much higher. The next morning began with sunlight and noise. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing, emails, notifications, headlines. Overnight, the chalkboard photo had gone viral. She reclaimed her grandmother's legacy in one line. Thousands of shares, hundreds of comments. Some called me brave. Some called me cruel. But they were all saying my name, not Valerie's. I made coffee and turned on the news. The headline read, Sisters in Bakery Feud, Truth in the Fine Print. My photo was on the screen. They played a short clip of me saying, No one who lies deserves to use Grandma's story. Then Valerie's interview followed, the same trembling voice, the same fake tears. Except this time it didn't land. The anchor's tone had changed. Sources confirmed the court reinstated ownership to Marjorie Carter. He said. Forgery charges pending. I exhaled. The truth was finally louder than the performance. A knock came at my door. When I opened it, Clara stood there with 2 folders and tired eyes. Morning media star, she said. You need to see this. She handed me a document. County investigation report. Valerie didn't file that transfer alone. The notary stamp came from a man named Victor Hale, county records clerk. He's been under review for accepting private favors. My stomach tightened. So she had inside help. Clara nodded. Which means this isn't just family drama. It's fraud tied to a public office. That's why someone warned you. I looked back at the text from the unknown number. It wasn't a threat. It was a tip. Clara leaned against the counter. We can press charges. Full exposure. Or we let the system handle it quietly. I shook my head. Quiet got us here. Hannah arrived moments later, holding 2 coffees. They're already spinning new angles online, she said. Valerie's claiming she was misled by that clerk. Playing the victim again. I laughed softly. Of course she is. Clara looked at me carefully. What do you want to do, Marjorie? Public fight or private justice? I stared out the window. The street below shimmered with morning light. Across the way, the bakery sign still hung crooked. Eloise's oven. Grandma's name. My heartbeat slowed. I want people to know the truth, I said. All of it. Not the version she edits. Not the half apology she'll post online. The real story. Then tell it yourself, Hannah said. Use your own voice before she twists it again. That afternoon we went back to the bakery. The doors were still sealed, but through the glass sunlight fell across the counters. Reporters waited outside, their cameras idle. I stepped up to the window and pressed my hand to the glass. Grandma built this on kindness, I whispered. Valerie turned it into theater. I'm taking it back, one truth at a time. Hannah set up her phone. Ready? I nodded. The red light blinked. My name is Marjorie Carter, I began. And this is my grandmother's bakery. It was stolen through lies and I took it back with proof, not anger. To anyone watching who's been erased, you're not crazy. You're just early to the truth. The video was short, simple, and honest. We posted it at 2:12 p.m. By 4 p.m. it had 500,000 views. Comments flooded in. This isn't revenge. It's restoration. Finally, a story where the quiet woman wins. Clara called that evening. The district attorney's office just opened a fraud case against the clerk. Valerie's name is on the documents. She's panicking. Good, I said quietly. Maybe panic will teach her what empathy couldn't. But when I hung up, my phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number. Be careful. Valerie's not the only one with something to lose. I stared at it for a long time, the screen glowing cold in the dark. Was it a warning or a threat? Because if someone inside that office helped her, then clearing my name might uncover something much bigger than a bakery, and I wasn't sure they'd let me live to tell it. A week later, the courthouse smelled like rain and paper. Valerie sat across from me at the mediation table, her posture small, her eyes rimmed in red. Beside her, the county clerk she'd bribed kept his gaze fixed on the floor. The world had turned fast. Too fast for either of them to rewrite the ending. When the judge entered, the room fell silent. His voice was even, almost kind. The evidence is clear. The property, business name, and assets belong to Ms. Marjorie Carter. Restitution and penalties will be determined. Valerie whispered something I couldn't hear. Maybe sorry. Maybe help. I didn't answer. There was nothing left to fix. Outside, cameras waited again. But this time I didn't hide. I stepped forward, said my piece, then walked past them. No speeches, no vengeance. Just truth. Hannah met me by the steps, umbrella in hand. You did it, she said. I shook my head. No. We proved it. There's a difference. Clara joined us, smiling for the first time in days. The clerk pled guilty. Valerie's cooperation will shorten his sentence, but she's out of business for good. I looked toward the gray sky. Good. Let the storm wash it clean. That night, I returned to the bakery alone. The lights were off, but I flipped the switch anyway. The room glowed warm again, like home. Flower dust sparkled in the air, soft as snow. On the counter sat Grandma's framed photo. Her eyes, caught mid-laugh, seemed to say, "You learned." I whispered, "I did." I opened the chalkboard notebook where customers had started leaving messages since the scandal. "Keep baking. Proud of you. Truth always rises." I smiled, writing one last line beneath them. "We rise again tomorrow." Outside, I could hear the hum of traffic, the soft pulse of the city moving on. People forget fast, but the lessons stay carved where they matter most, inside you. The next morning, Eloise's oven reopened quietly. No ribbon cutting, no press. Just the smell of coffee, sugar, and second chances. Customers came in one by one, old faces, new ones, all curious. A woman approached the counter. "You're Marjorie, right? The one from the story?" I nodded. She smiled. "I just wanted to say thank you. My sister tried something similar with our dad's shop. Seeing you fight back, it gave me courage." That word, courage, landed deeper than any headline. As the day ended, Hannah slid into a stool near the window, flower on her jeans. "You could write about this, you know," she said. "Not the scandal. The lesson." "Maybe," I said. "But people forget the fine print until it hurts them. Maybe it's time they read it sooner." She raised her cup. "To Grandma Eloise." "To truth," I said, clinking mine against hers. The evening light poured across the bakery like gold, catching in the glass display where the first fresh loaf cooled. The one I'd baked myself, start to finish. For the first time, the air smelled right again. When I locked up that night, a small envelope waited at the door. No address. Just one sentence inside, written in neat ink. "You think it's over, but the man she worked for still wants his cut." I stood there, the paper trembling between my fingers. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled, low, deliberate, like the sound of a story that wasn't quite finished. I smiled to myself. Then they picked the wrong baker to test. If you've ever been written out of your own story, take it back. They may steal your sign, but they'll never own your name. And if my story made you believe that, stay with me. Because this isn't just revenge. It's rebuilding, one truth at a time.